Welcome to the Springhill Toyota High School Showdown. We're here at Springhill Toyota on Government and I-65. I'm Mike Herndon.
I'm Brad Lowell.
We're going to talk a little bit about this week's slate of high school football games. But first, we're going to go back a week and talk a little bit about last week's games. Had some amazing games, and I'm going to start with the big one that I know everybody's probably still talking about.
Right.
Blunt's 52-49 loss to Spanish Fort.
Yeah.
Came back from 42 to 14 down, came back all the way back to take the lead. Spanish Fort went ahead in the final minute, and Blunt missed a field goal at the very end of the game. What an amazing game.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's what high school football is all about. And those are two really good football teams. When any team, normal team down 42-14 at the half would roll over and just start getting ready for the next week.
Sure.
But Blunt's kids, you got to give credit to Coach Holly and his staff and the kids at Blunt to go into halftime, regroup, and I mean, they made it a game.
What a show in the second half.
And I mean, you know, you have to, even though you come out with a loss, to me, there's a lot of positives you can pull out of that. You know, number one, your kids showed complete fight in them to not give up, to play to the whistle blows at the end. And he's got to be proud of the fact that, you know, the effort that they gave. And you know, that speaks a lot for his team, for Coach Holly and his staff.
And another game that was similar, and Murphy fell behind 20-0 to Foley, came storming back and ended up falling by 27-26.
Yeah.
Kind of a similar game there in the way they came back in the second half.
Yeah, and a similar situation there. You know, those kids were resilient. The coaching staffs kept plugging along, made it a football game right there when, you know, you could easily just kind of roll over. But, you know, those, again, both of those staffs, Murphy's and Blunt's, they ought to be proud of the way their kids fought toward the end. And I'm sure it was a lot of mistakes leading up to those early points being put on the board, you know, by Foley and by Spanish Fort. And that's one thing about football, you know, it's hard to overcome, you know, big changes in score right there at halftime, you know, and you just kind of hope your kids will fight it through.
Well, as a former coach yourself, looking forward, they both got big region games coming up this week. How do you get over a loss like that and get refocused on the task ahead?
Well, it's kind of what, you know, you have to understand that every week is a new week. Whether you win a game, whether it's a big game, whether you lose a game that, you know, nobody expected you to lose. It doesn't matter. You have to, as a mindset with your coaches and with the players, you have to have a rule that, you know, we're going to learn from our wins and we're going to learn from our losses, but we're going to put it behind us and we're going to get ready for this next opponent. Because if you don't, then issues and problems could snowball at that point.
One loss becomes two and
That's
possibly
right.
more.
Mm-hmm.
Another very tight game last weekend was one that you saw right here on MCPSS TV. Viger's overtime win over Williamson. What was the key to that one?
Yeah, and you know, it's two really good defenses, two old-style football teams going at it right there, and going into overtime. I mean, it's a good football game. Viger, of course, you know, they lost 3 in a row, and now they've won 4 in a row. That was a big win for them. Region win too. For Williamson, they're 3-3 overall. They could easily be 5-1 with a 3-point loss to St. Paul's and then an overtime loss to Viger. Two really good football teams. And it was a great matchup, a great game, and it was a good game to see.
When you talk about old-fashioned, hard-nosed football, that's kind of what we're expecting to see tonight between Alma Bryant and Baker. Two teams that are coming off a couple of losses each, two teams that desperately need a win in 7A Region 1.
That's right.
What do you expect out of this matchup tonight?
Well, you know, Alma Bryant, you know, they've won 2 games this year, and their kids and their coaching staff and their community seems to be very excited in the way that program is moving. You know, Baker, they started early on, winning a few ball games, and dropped a few at the end. It's going to be the key to see if Coach Smith and his players can kind of overcome some adversity and get back on track. And I'm sure they'll be ready to play. But it's going to come down to the trenches. Football, you hear Coach Saban, even in college and even in pro, the games are won on the line of scrimmage, offensive line and defensive line. And so I think they're putting a lot of focus on, smash mouth football, stopping the run, and they feel like that if they could do both of those things, they have a high chance of being successful.
We've got coaches here from both Baker and Alma Bryant and some players from each team as well. We're going to talk to them in just a minute, so stay tuned. Welcome back to Springhill Toyota for the high school showdown. We're here with Alma Bryant, assistant head coach Adam Huddleston. Coach, welcome.
Thank you.
Bryant comes into this game 2-4. Tell us a little bit about how the season's gone so far.
We've had our ups, we've had our downs, we've had our good, we've had our bad. One thing, our team is getting better. We're working hard to overcome adversity. We had some players out at the beginning of the season, but we have our positives. We have our first 7A region win in school history. We have our first 2-win season going that we've had in a long time. So we have a lot of positive things going at our school and in our community.
You mentioned the 7A win over Mary Montgomery in region. How big is that for a school when not only the first 7A win, but the first region win you've had in quite a while? How big is that to kind of get the program moving in the right direction?
Big. That's same with our kids, our coaches, our staff, our school has had to overcome adversity to get to that point, but that's what we want from them, is to be able to get through it, push through it, and fight for it. And that's what that region win says about our kids and our coaching staff, is that they're all working in the same direction to achieve what they want to get.
Coach, this is Coach Haynes' first year as football coach at Alma Bryant. What are some of the things that he brings to the table that you think has kind of changed the course of this team?
Very much so. He is a motivator and believes in physicality in the game.
How does that manifest itself in practice?
Practice is a lot more fun. It's a lot louder. It's a lot faster. It's a lot more fun to be a part of.
Tell us a little bit about the player you brought with you here today.
This is Darione Cooper. He is one of my senior defensive ends. He does a great job. He's been selected already this season for one of the D-line awards through one of the clubs in Mobile. He does an amazing job.
Well, Darione, what do you see in practice under this coaching staff?
I see some hard hitting. That's what I see, Coach.
Well, when he mentioned physicality, that's what I would have expected.
Oh, yes, sir.
Much harder than last year?
Yes, sir, definitely.
What's this season been like for you? You were here last year. To get a couple of wins under your belt, including a region win, has it kind of boosted excitement around campus, around the team?
Oh, yeah. Rajay once said it before, talking about walking around school and just people be like, oh, I hope you have a good Friday, get ready, pumped up rather than just, it's Friday.
You mentioned Rajay Bowie, your quarterback, had a huge game against Mary Montgomery, 252 yards, 4 touchdowns. What does he bring to your offense?
A great kid, great leader, great young man. Anything you ask him to do, he does. He's one of those type of kids that you want him with you all the time.
Who are some other players who kind of stepped up for you this year and filled major roles or been spark plugs for the offense or defense?
Also senior, he's played quarterback and receiver, Dylan Neely. He's here with us tonight as well. Big O lineman Aaron Bentley, another senior. They all step up and do their jobs, and they've done what they've been asked over and over again.
Coach, you have a big matchup this week against Baker. Baker over the past few years has come on as a pretty strong program. What are some of the things that you think that you're going to need to do this week to be successful?
I think that it comes down every week is who's going to practice, who's going to prepare, who's going to try and get their job done hardest and the fastest over and over again. Because in football, that's what it's going to come down to. It's two teams, they want to win. We want to win, they want to win. That's what we have to see.
Right.
When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about that showdown with Baker. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Springhill Toyota for the high school showdown. We're here with Alma Bryant, assistant head coach Adam Huddleston. Coach, before we went to the break, we talked a little bit about matching up against Baker. Looking at the players on the field, how do you see this matchup? How do you see your team matching up with what Baker's going to throw at you?
It's going to come down to we have to take care of ourselves. We can't commit penalties. We can't turn the ball over. We have to do what we're supposed to do. Everybody has to do their job.
Baker seems to be a team that doesn't have really one kind of home run hitter on offense. They kind of hit 5 and 10 yard you to death. How does that play into how you defend them?
Well, we have to prepare for them just like they have to prepare for us. They have a great O-line. They have a great coaching staff. They have great receivers, great running backs. I mean, that's in 7A football in South Alabama, everybody's going to be good.
Well, we have another player with us. You want to introduce him?
This is one of our senior offensive linemen, Bentley.
Welcome, Aaron. What have you seen studying Baker this week, particularly on the defensive side of the ball?
A lot of toughness up front and good. They got good corners, good safeties that can back up their guys and do very well.
Aaron, what is Coach Breland had pretty much was a coach before Coach Hain come here. What is a big difference between Coach Breland and Coach Hain that Coach Hain has brought?
Coach Haynes brought a lot of more, I would say, brutal. I guess.
Right.
It's a lot tougher than it's a smash mouth football instead of a lot of zone plays and stuff, things like that.
Well, I imagine as an offensive lineman, that's music to your ears, huh?
Yes, sir.
And a game like this against Baker, which are also pretty big up front, I mean, is this kind of game that, as an offensive lineman, that you look forward to?
Always. It gives both sides of the ball opportunities to get looked at by colleges. It's a big rivalry in this area, and I'm looking forward to it.
Coach, preparing for a game like this, how much do you focus what you're doing offensively on how they defend you, and how much is it just we're going to do what we do and they're going to have to stop us?
Well, we do have to take into account, obviously, what they're going to do, but the main thing for us is taking care of us, taking care of the football, no stupid penalties, and everybody does their job. Whether it's offense or defense for us, we have to prepare every step, every rep, just like we would anybody else for a win.
Coach, you mentioned this year's been full of highs and lows at times. Mm-hmm. And every week, you got to get ready to play a good football team. And so, how do you roll that into your kids, whether they coming off a high of a win or coming off of a loss? What do you guys instill to make sure that they get prepared for the next week?
There is no emotional roller coaster. We're never too up, we're never too down. We try and keep our kids and ourselves in the middle. We're there to work, we're there to prepare, we're there to do our jobs. We can't ride the high roller coaster when it goes up and be excited about everything, and we can't get down and we can't get on ourselves when something bad happens.
Right.
We have to be ready to work and do our job the next day.
Any particular thing about Baker's offense that stands out as something, hey, we got to stop that?
Their O-line and their skill guys. Their O-line and their skill guys. They're big up front and they're fast in the backfield.
If you had to put your finger on one thing that's going to be the key to the game tonight, what would that be?
I'm going to say the OLDL, the battle up front.
Same thing.
OLDL, the guys up front. Their O-linemen are huge and they've played together before, and same thing. for us, our O-line, senior laden, senior heavy, just ready to see who can do their job.
Strength on strength.
Yes, sir.
Stay with us. Alma Bryant's marching band is going to entertain you, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Springhill Toyota. We're here with a high school showdown, and we're here now with Baker head coach Danny Smith. Welcome back, Coach.
Thank you. Thanks for having us, Mike.
I think the last time we talked to you, you were 2-0, and now you've hit the skids a little bit.
Yeah, we have.
Had some rough times. How do you bounce back from that and get back on the winning track?
Well, yeah, I tell you, we won 2 in a row out the gate and we lost the last 4 to 4 good teams, and we just got to stay focused, and this is what these guys are doing, and we've had a good week of practice, and they know that this season is not over by no means. I mean, right now, we're 1-3 in the region, and we got 4 region games left to play, and it starts with this Friday night against a good Bryant team, and and just we're going to take one game at a time. We're going to get better at what we do, and I'm looking forward to a good game this Friday night against a good Bryant team.
And obviously now every game is pretty much must win to make the playoffs. Right?
Absolutely. I mean, we can't afford to lose another game, and so we're, like I said, we're 1-3 right now, and hopefully we can win out and be 5-3. And it's not the end if we don't win Friday night. We're still not out of it, but the margin for error is real slim right now. I mean, we got to win.
You've had a very tough schedule to open the season. With that said, I know some of it's the opponents that you've been playing, but what about what you're doing that you see that needs to improve?
Well, first of all, we can't be one-dimensional on offense, and I felt like last week ran the ball a lot better than we have in the previous 3 or 4 games, and we got to better throw the ball a little bit. We got to get people out of the box, and we got to. Our offensive line is really good, and I like our running backs, and for some reason that the timing of the passing game is not exactly there. Just if the wideout's not running the right route or making the right cut, the timing with the quarterback, we really spend some extra time on throwing the ball, because in 7A football you got to have a little bit of balance, and I believe in smash mouth football running downhill, but there comes a point where you got to play action off of it and get us a first down here or there. So we've really been emphasizing throwing the ball and completing some passes. Defensively, the guys are running around, they're playing too many snaps on defense, and we got to get that fixed also.
Well, Coach, who you got sitting beside you?
This is senior number 91, Colin McCants. He's 2-year starters for us, and I tell you, I can't say enough good things about this kid. He's a good football player.
Well, Colin, coming into the season, you always have, expectations of what you want to do, not only as a player but as a team. And even though, you might record-wise doesn't seem like, that where you actually want it to be, you still control your own destiny.
Yes, sir.
So how is and what are you doing as a team, as players, to try to rally the group together and take one step at a time?
We're trying to, when we get at practice, actually do what we're supposed to do when we're supposed to do it, try to stay focused and move around full speed to do what we got to do to get prepared for the Friday night game.
This has been a defense that's had its share of big plays as well.
Yes, sir.
Interceptions returned for touchdowns, that sort of thing. Tell me about how the defense has come together this year.
I feel like the defense has come together real good. We have D linemen that make sacks, get after the quarterback, stop the run, tackle for losses. Then we got linebackers that back us up when we can't do it, make tackles for loss, getting after the quarterback. Then our DBs, lock down DBs. So, I mean, the total package.
We just heard Alma Bryant's assistant coach kind of paint this as a game that's going to be one up front in the trenches. Yeah. They got a big offensive line. You guys are big up front. Is this the kind of game you like?
Yes, sir. I love these type of games. It shows what D-line, O-line can do, because most of the time you don't get that much praise playing in the trenches. So we control the game.
Stay with us. We're going to talk a little bit more about this game coming up tonight, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Springhill Toyota High School Showdown. We're back here with Baker head coach Danny Smith. Talk a little bit about the game tonight with Alma Bryant. What do you see out of Alma Bryant's offense that you got to stop tonight?
You know, one thing that sticks out, that just jumps off the screen, is how they running the football right now. This is the best Bryant team I've seen since I've been at Baker, and they're physical up front. They like to run the football, and we better be ready. You know, those guys come off, and they don't do anything fancy. They got a big heavy package they're going to throw in there. They come out with a 5 solid, 5 offensive linemen on one side of the ball, and they're going to line up and come right at you. And I tell you, they're productive at what they do, and I'm very, very impressed with them. And we got to be ready to play. I told our defense guys, you better buckle up now. This is old school football. They're going to come right at you and hit you in the mouth.
You mentioned the improvement that they've had as a team. Can you kind of see or expect a different confidence level out of them than perhaps past years?
Oh, absolutely. You can see they got a chip on their shoulder when they get on the field, and they playing hard. They running defensively. They running to the ball, and just when you go back and look, they're 2-4 right now. Nobody's blowing them out except McGill, and they turned the ball over 4 times against McGill in the first half. And it's hard to win when you do that. But every game, Baldwin County beat them 21-14. Baldwin County's got a good football team this year, and I tell you now, we're going to be ready. We've got to be ready to play because we go down in their territory and it's tough down in the Bayou, and they're excited. And but I like how we can practice. And these Hornets will be ready to go Friday night.
Coach, we mentioned earlier about high school football. Week to week, every game's important, and so to maintain that focus with players, whether you're coming off a win or whether you're coming off the lose, to keep that focus. What are some of the things that you try to stress to your kids to understand that no matter what happens the week before, it's a new week?
No, absolutely. We talk about the 48-hour rule. Whether win or loss, you got to put it behind you. You can't keep living in the past. You got to learn from the past and correct the mistakes. But you just can't play that game over and over and over. Win or lose, you got to get rid of it. And you got to focus on your next opponent. And that's sometimes we get high school kids, not just the kids at Baker, they get caught up so much in that. They want to live in the glory that hey, we won a big game right now, and it's Wednesday before you get them focused on the next opponent. And it's the same thing with losing. Oh, we lost. They're still talking about it. It's guys, you got to put it behind you, man. You got to focus on your next opponent and get ready to play. And that's the biggest thing I see. And we've done a pretty good job of that, and especially this week. And they know that we're getting ready to face a good team tonight.
Yeah. Have another player with you here. You want to introduce him?
This is number 1 outside linebacker, Ozzie Quinnie, and he's a great kid. I think the world of him. And I asked him one time, the first name being Ozzie, I said, "You ever heard of Ozzie Osbourne?" "No, sir, Coach, I hadn't." So yes, he's a rock star. But I tell you what, he's a rock on this defense. I promise you.
What about Ozzie Newsom?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I know Ozzie Newsom.
Yeah,
Good.
that's another. I knew he knew Ozzie.
Well, in preparing for this game, what have you seen out of Alma Bryant? And what on offense do you need to concentrate on to try to slow them down?
Like Coach said, they smash mouth football in the trenches. And if you're not coming ready to play, then they're just going to run down your throat and pass or do whatever they got to do.
As an old defensive coach, you build that toughness. These are the kind of games, especially defensive guys, you have to love.
Yeah.
This is when real football comes in, smash mouth football. What do you, with the defense and you guys, how do you feel like you as a team defensively, do you feel like that you're coming together, at a critical time this year?
Yes, sir, I think so, because if we don't come together, then we're just going to fall and crumble.
Right.
And we have to stay tough and be strong through the bad and the good.
That's right.
We've talked a lot about smash mouth football. We've talked a lot about 5 and 10 yards at a time. Who's one guy on either team that might surprise us and break the big play that could turn this game?
Well, I tell you, Bryant don't really have a go-to guy. But I tell you, when you turn the film on and watch them, you have number 70 over here. Number 70, he comes off the ball, hits you in the mouth. They like running behind number 7, their left tackle.
Now I would not expect you to list an offensive lineman as the big play guy.
Well, but they're gonna run behind him. Their running backs are very good. They run hard. And they spread it out a good bit. They don't really have one go-to guy. On our side of the ball, right now we got to find a way to get the ball in Jacoby Rogers' hand, number 7. Whether it's he returns punts, kickoffs, he jet sweeps, put him in the back, flare him out. He's one guy though. He's got to get at least 15 to 20 touches a game.
How has your offense kind of evolved over the past few weeks? you've got a lot of different guys who can do a lot of different things, and you've got to manufacture touches for a lot of them.
Yeah, I tell you, one of the biggest things we've done last couple of weeks, we kind of trimmed the fat. I think we had too much trying to do too many things and not getting good at what we do. And so we've eliminated some things. We shrunk our playbook down a little bit and changed some blocking schemes up front. You know, we ran the ball 275 yards against a good Fairhope team last week. And so that's one thing we've done. And but that's right, you got to find your playmakers. And sometimes it's not about X's and O's. You know, I heard Nick Saban say this one time. You know, you get the ball in your best player's hands when it's in critical situations. So it's not so much of scheming. Find a way to get the ball in your best player's hands on a critical third down or third and short or third and long, whatever the situation may be. And, you know, we got Fernando Billups has ran the ball extremely hard, and Josh Pruitt. And we just got to get them around, you know, distribute the ball to these playmakers' hands and see what happens.
With all that said, if you had to put your finger on one thing tonight to be the key to winning this game, what would it be?
You know, I've said it all along, in 7A football, you got to run the football and you got to stop the run. For us to win this game tonight, we've got to stop Bryant from winning the football because they're very physical up front. And I tell you, they got a good plan. What they try to do, they try to shrink the game. They're going to keep their offense on. They want to put together an 8, 10, 12, 15-play drive. And you look up and the first quarter's already over and their offense is still on the ball. That can't happen. We got to get some 3 and outs and get our offense back on the field.
That sounds familiar. Sounds like another team we know, right?
That's right.
Well, it should be a great game. It'll be an interesting battle of strength on strength.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it, and it's going to be a fun night.
Thanks for joining us. Thank you for joining us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Springhill Toyota for the high school showdown. We just heard from Baker coach Danny Smith and Alma Bryant assistant head coach Adam Huddleston talking about tonight's game between the Hurricanes and the Hornets. A lot of other good games on tap this weekend, including a pair of really key games in that same region, 7A Region 1. Start off with Davidson going to Fairhope. A huge game there for pecking order in that region. Both of those look like they look like probable playoff teams, but as far as who's going to get a home game and who's going to be on the road, it could come down to this one.
Well, right now you got 3 teams with 4 wins in 7A Region 1, and that's McGill, Fairhope, and Davidson. And of course, Davidson playing Fairhope tonight, you know, is going to shake that up a little bit on pretty much possibly the 1, 2, and 3 spot.
Yeah. 2 good defensive teams. We've been raving about Davidson's defense all year. Fairhope's pretty stout on that side of the ball too.
Yeah.
Points could be at a premium.
They could, and Davidson, you know, they dropped their first 2 real close, low-scoring games, and they've come on and reeled off 4 in a row, and you know, seem to be playing well right now. So, but Fairhope's a good team. It ought to be a good game.
Another key game in that region, Murphy and Theodore. Theodore's in a pretty good spot right there, but needs to keep winning. And Murphy, they're really kind of in the same boat as Baker and Bryant in this region. That they got to win out to pretty much make the playoffs, right?
Yeah, and you know, this is a critical game when you're talking about the playoff berth. It's really important for both teams. Both teams have 2 wins in the region. Still a lot of football to play, but obviously a big win Friday night for either one of these teams can really help in trying to possibly, you know, get a 4 spot, maybe even a 3 spot, depending on how the rest of the teams shake up.
And then looking down at Class 5A, Citronelle tangles with St. Paul's tonight. St. Paul's is obviously a state power, but really hasn't been as dominant as some St. Paul's teams in the past few years.
Right.
Is this a spot where Citronelle might be able to sneak up on them?
Well, you know, it's high school football. Anything can happen. And Coach Funk, you know, they've won some big games this year. They're 4-2 overall. Both Central and St. Paul's are 3-0 in 5A Region 1. You never know. That's why they tee it up and play it.
Yeah.
And so, you know, this could be a big stepping stone coming in and playing well and having an opportunity to knock off St. Paul's.
Certainly a big opportunity. Well, thanks for joining us. Sit back and enjoy the game.